In late March 2026, across the city of Mysuru, the fires in thousands of commercial kitchens simply went cold. These closures weren't caused by a lack of customers. The city had run out of the physical fuel required to cook, as the commercial sector bore the brunt of a sudden, total shortage of liquefied petroleum gas. As businesses shuttered, a secondary crisis gripped domestic households. Fearing the onset of a lockdown-style scarcity, millions of families began panic buying and hoarding cylinders. The national demand curve spiked during that month, leaping from 55 lakh daily bookings to nearly 89 lakh. This triggered an immediate price hike. Domestic cylinders rose by 60 rupees, and commercial units spiked by 144 rupees. India entered a crippling energy vacuum. While the impact was felt locally, the true catalyst was unfolding thousands of miles away. To understand why the gas stopped flowing, we have to move from the streets of India to the global stage. India's energy security rests on a razor's edge. This chart shows the nation's total LPG requirement, 60% of which must be imported. Historically, those imports follow a set path across the Arabian Sea, sourced almost entirely from production facilities in Saudi Arabia and Qatar. That supply chain fractured in February 2026, when conflict in West Asia involving the US, Israel, and Iran escalated into a regional war. The fighting turned the Strait of Hormuz into a no-go zone. This narrow maritime choke point was effectively shut down to regular commercial traffic. Because roughly 60% of India's LPG imports are required to pass through this single strait, the blockade instantly severed the country's primary energy artery. The crisis deepened as the war reached the shore. Regional liquefaction facilities in the Gulf were damaged by the fighting or suspended operations entirely. Between the closure of the shipping lanes and the damage to the production plants, the global supply of available gas evaporated overnight. It was a direct link. A maritime blockade an ocean away was now deciding who could afford to cook dinner in Mysuru. With the majority of its imports cut off, the Indian government began a process of energy triage to prevent a total societal breakdown. This flowchart illustrates the hierarchy of the response. Supplies to hotels and industries were throttled to a trickle so that domestic households could remain prioritized. This specific policy decision is what forced those thousands of workers in the food and beverage industry out of their jobs. The government had saved the domestic kitchen, but at the cost of a deep, bleeding wound in the commercial economy that required a radical cure. To bypass the Gulf entirely, the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas pivoted its logistics. They doubled imports from Argentina and diverted 800 TMT of cargo from the United States. Simultaneously, local refineries were ordered to ramp up their output by 40%. By the end of March, domestic production was meeting over 60% of the daily national requirement. As the new shipments arrived, the government increased the commercial quota back to 70%, providing a lifeline to steel, to the textile industry, and the automotive sectors. The logistics of the crisis had taught a lesson. Relying on millions of individual cylinders shipped through a single narrow strait was a strategic liability. The long-term solution is the PNG push. Piped natural gas removes the need for the physical transport of cylinders by delivering fuel through underground infrastructure. The government has issued an ultimatum. Households with existing PNG connectivity must switch. If they don't, their supply of LPG cylinders will be permanently discontinued. The 2026 West Asia War didn't just create a temporary shortage. It acted as the final catalyst that forced India to accelerate its infrastructure and trade routes to ensure its energy independence.